Hello everyone, Scott here. Welcome back to Storytime. Today we're reading Steam, Smoke, and Steel, Back in Time with Trains by Patrick O'Brien. Let's get started. When I grow up, I want to drive a train, just like my dad does. I think my dad's got the best job in the world. He's an engineer. Up in the cab of his giant locomotive, he controls 10,000 tons of rolling steel. Coal, oil, lumber, cars, whatever needs to be carried by rail, he hauls it with his 4,400 horsepower diesel engine. One day, I counted more than 100 freight cars lined up behind his engine. That train was more than a mile long. Have you ever noticed that there's usually more than one engine pulling a train? When the locomotives are joined up like that, it's called a consist. The engines working together can pull really heavy loads. My dad controls all the engines in his consist from his seat in the front of the first locomotive. Computer controls in the cab help drive the train, but my dad does a lot of the driving with hand controls. To start the train, my father releases the brake and moves the reverser to the forward setting. Then he uses the throttle to set the speed. The throttle has 8 speeds, from run 1 up to run 8. He begins slowly at run 1, and when he gets to run 8, he's going 70 miles per hour. His train thunders down the tracks, like my grandfather's train did 30 years before. When my dad was a kid in the 1960s, he sometimes got to ride on his dad's train. My grandfather's locomotive was smaller and had less pulling power than my dad's, but it worked the same way. The diesel engines turned electric generators. The generators made electricity, and the electricity turned the wheels to make the train go. That's why diesel locomotives are sometimes called diesel-electric locomotives. My dad loves to tell me stories about riding with his father in the cab of that old diesel. "I'll never forget the time," he'll say, "when my dad let me ride with him all the way up from Florida. We were hauling a circus train. You should have seen it when we stopped in those little towns along the way. The elephants were let out, and your granddaddy and I took them for a walk down the street. The clowns and acrobats would come out and start doing a show just for the fun of it. I tell you, those folks in those towns had never seen anything like it." But my grandfather tells different stories. When he was still a kid, trains ran on steam power instead of diesel. The locomotives were like great, big, smoking, puffing monsters. My grandfather says he always wanted to drive one of those old steam locomotives, like his mom did back in the old days. It was very unusual to find a woman engineer in the 1930s, but they say my great-grandmother was an unusual woman. My grandfather still remembers the puffing smoke, hissing steam, and his mom smiling and waving as her train pulled into the station. My great-grandmother drove a steam locomotive. The diesel-electric locomotive had just been invented, but she didn't like the brand new diesels that she began seeing around the train yard. Yes, they were shiny and modern, but she was a romantic. She loved the billowing steam and smoke, the big driving wheels, and the red-hot firebox of her big old steam engine. Somehow, those new diesels just didn't have as much charm as the classic steamers. The old steam engines were not as efficient as the newer diesels, though. A steam engine had to stop about every 100 miles to fill up on coal and water. It made a lot of thick, black smoke that clogged up the air in the cities, and it was also really noisy. A diesel did not have to stop as often to fill up on fuel, and it was quieter and cleaner than a steam engine. From the 1930s to the 1950s, almost all the railroads in the country replaced their old steam locomotives with diesels. A lot of locomotives from my great-grandmother's time were designed with smooth curves and flowing lines. This was called streamlining. and it was supposed to make the train look faster and more modern. Some people said that the streamliners looked like they were going fast even when they were standing still. There were lots of different streamliners. Some were diesel and some were steam. Underneath the smooth surfaces, though, my great-grandmother's locomotive was a lot like the one that her father had driven years before. My great-great-grandfather drove a train in the 1900s. When his daughter first saw that train, she knew just what she wanted to do when she grew up. She wanted to be an engineer and drive a train like her dad. My great-great-grandfather started working on trains as a fireman. A fireman on a train didn't put out a fire. He kept it going. He rode in the cab with the engineer and shoveled coal from the tender into the fire in the firebox. In a steam engine, coal or wood was burned in the firebox to heat the water in the huge boiler. This made lots and lots of steam, and the steam was used as power to make the train run. A fireman's job was tough, hot, and dirty. He had to keep the fire burning at just the right heat. He also had to keep up a steady pace with his shoveling. If he slowed down, so did the train. In his years as a fireman, my great-great-grandfather shoveled tons and tons of coal. Somehow he found time to keep an eye on the engineer beside him, and he learned how to drive the mighty locomotive. Finally, he became an engineer, just like his father had been years before. My great-great-grandfather grew up in the days of the classic American-type steam locomotive. His dad, my great-great-great-grandfather, drove one in the 1870s. This is an American-type locomotive. This train was built for crossing the wide-open spaces of the young United States. My great-great-great-grandfather liked to tell stories too. His favorite was about the time his train was held up by the famous outlaw Jesse James. James and his gang had piled a bunch of logs on the tracks to force the train to stop. The bandits had their 6-shooters out, and they made the passengers get out of the train and hand over all their money. Everyone was really scared, but my great-great-great-grandfather made sure that no one got hurt. In those days, there were several brakemen on the train. There was no brake for the whole train. Each car had its own. When the train needed to stop or slow down, the brakeman had to run along the tops of the cars and turn the wheel of the handbrake on each car. This was a very dangerous job, especially on cold, snowy days. But in the late 1870s, an air brake was developed so that the engineer could stop the train by himself with a lever up in his cab. My great-great-great-great-grandfather drove a train in the 1850s, in the early days of railroads. The ride was slow and bumpy, but his son loved to go along any time he could. Railroad companies were being started all along the east coast of the United States in the 1850s. The railroads laid tracks between the big cities in the east and began spreading west toward the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. It wasn't easy to lay out a railroad, especially over land with lots of rivers, hills, and mountains. A train can't go up a steep hill, and it can't go around a sharp curve, so the tracks had to be made as flat and straight as possible. The railroad workers built bridges over valleys and drilled tunnels through mountains. It took a lot of time and money, but it was worth it. With the railroads in place, people could travel a lot faster and a lot farther, and things like coal, cattle, and other heavy stuff could be shipped over long distances. My great-great-great-great-grandfather was proud to be a part of it, since his father had helped to get it all started. In the 1830s, my great-great-great-great-grandfather sometimes rode along with his dad on one of the first trains in the United States. My great-great-great-great-great-grandfather liked to brag that he was one of the very first people to ever drive a train in this country. Before trains, people traveled in stagecoaches and buggies. People had never traveled faster than the speed of a running horse, and at first they weren't too sure about this brand new invention called a steam locomotive. One time, my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather decided to prove that his machine could go faster and pull more weight than a horse ever could. He set up a race, his locomotive pulling 3 cars and 20 people against a horse and carriage with 3 people inside. He gave the horse a small head start, then set off down the tracks. Smoke came pouring out of the smokestack of the little engine, and the passengers were choked with black smoke and showered with burning embers. Ladies put up their umbrellas for protection, but then had to throw them out the windows when they started to catch on fire. People were amazed that the train could actually go almost 20 miles per hour. After 10 miles, the train crossed the finish line a mile ahead of the horse. The horse was all tired out, but the locomotive was puffing away, ready to go another 10 miles. The passengers' clothes were ruined by the rain of sparks, but they could all see that trains were the way of the future. So I guess you could say that trains run in my family. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandmother, my great-great... well, you get the idea. They all drove trains. When I'm a grown-up, I want to drive a train too. And maybe then I'll have a kid of my own. The end. Thank you so much for joining us. Now let's pop on over to Tessa and Ronnie with an amazing craft.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Storytime and Craft. We're craft masters Ronnie
and Tessa,
and we're here to do another craft for you at the Colorado Railroad Museum.
We just read Steam, Smoke, and Steel, Back in Time with Trains by Patrick O'Brien. In this book, we got to see how trains adapted over time and became more advanced with the people that ran them. So let's make our very own timeline and go back in time with trains. Let's grab our materials. For our craft today, we are going to be using a template found in the link in the description below. Our first template is all of our trains.
So we have a variety of trains that come from different eras, and you'll recognize them because they come straight out from the book.
Next, we will need our own timeline to display all of the trains from the previous template. You can draw your own or find one that we included in the link in the description below. You'll also need some scissors and some glue or tape. Let's get started.
So what we're going to do is
we are going to cut out all of these trains so they're ready for our timeline.
Which is your favorite train here on the museum?
At the museum? Good question. I really like our ski train.
Oh, yeah.
I think particularly because of the color. I think it really stands out. What about you, Ronnie?
I like our 20. I have like a sisterhood with the 20. But yeah, I do like this one. It's cute. So I like that. So I like that one. I think I like the 20 because she's a steam locomotive, and you need coal and water to make steam. It's just the whole science of it. Just a lot of fun.
And it makes a lot of noise.
It does make a lot of noise, especially when you're releasing the steam.
There we go.
Last one. Okay.
All right, we have all of our trains. So let's figure out where these trains go on our timeline. One way we can do that is by rewinding this video and listening to our story again.
Another way is that if you have the book at home, you can reread the book or look for the pictures and make those connections.
All right. What do we start with?
1830s. That's way older than 1990s.
Mm-hmm. I think we're looking for something smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this one?
I think that's right.
I think so. So Roddy's using some glue, but you can also use tape, a stapler, anything else you have at home. What comes next? I'm I'm kind of thinking the next largest.
This one right here. Yep.
Oh, look at the smokestack.
Yeah, it's really small compared to like our 191 stack.
We only need a little bit of glue to do the trick.
All right. I think the next one here.
Here are options. What do you think?
I think it's this one.
I think you're right.
I mean, I like this one because it has the wood burning stack.
Oh,
And that was used to make sure that they could keep as much of the cinders and stuff inside so that they're not starting forest fires along the way.
it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think next, we have another steam engine,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That was great.
Yeah, they're starting to get fairly large. They're taking up a little bit more room.
They sure are. But the stack is smaller in this one. Do you know why?
Why?
Because it's using coal instead of wood.
Ah,
I know.
yeah. So this is like the 20.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, this is where I get a little mixed up sometimes.
I think next, this one.
I think it's going to be this one.
Oh yeah, look, those wheels look a lot like these wheels.
Yeah, like the steam locomotive wheels. You know what? I was thinking, I wonder, they look so much sleeker and more in line with a different kind of train than the ones we've seen already.
Yeah, let's compare the two.
Hold on, let me put that on there.
So we have a steam engine still, but it's a lot sleeker than the 1900s model.
For sure.
I think they're starting to compete with the new and up-and-coming diesel
I
train.
think that's exactly right.
So speaking of, when we get into the 1960s, we're going to start to see some diesel engines.
Yes, exactly.
So which one? I think we have this one first.
Yep, I believe that's right.
All right. Lay this one on the track. Perfect. That leaves us one more.
One last one, 1990s.
Now we're fully in the diesel trains.
We really are. But they're fun to ride too.
They are.
I think a lot of people will have, everybody has what they like best, but these are really cool. And you see these all over the place now.
A lot of this generation is still in service because they are so efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And you can come to the Colorado Railroad Museum to ride a train just like this one.
Absolutely. Okay.
Oh, look at that. Look how much they grew
I know.
over time.
That is so much fun to see the differences and similarities.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you could hang up your timeline at home and make your very own railroad museum.
That'd be fun. Well, I hope you enjoyed our craft today. Thank you for joining us for Storytime and Craft. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Come visit us every third Tuesday of the month for live in-person Storytime and Craft here at the Colorado Railroad Museum.
Thanks. Bye.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Commenting and sharing in particular may qualify as virtual engagements for important funding programs like the SCFD.